I used to think ruin came like a slow leak, quiet, creeping, almost polite. I was wrong. Mine arrived under the white-hot glow of 1,000 lights, in the packed atrium of the Aldridge Design Summit, on the very night I was supposed to receive the top honor of my career. I stood there smiling, unaware that 3 people I trusted, my wife Marissa, my business partner Darren, and my primary investor Silas, had sharpened their knives in perfect harmony. They didn't just take my firm. They took my future, my name, my breath. And when I hit the floor, professionally, publicly, spiritually, each of them made sure to press a heel into my ribs on the way out. Marissa called me dead weight in front of the press. Darren claimed I stole his designs. Silas used his influence to blacklist me from every architectural board in the city. By the next morning, I wasn't a visionary architect. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't even employable. I was a warning, the man who flew too close to the sun and burned on descent. But the thing about ashes? They can still smolder. And mine did, quietly, relentlessly, until the night I sketched the blueprint that would become the instrument of all 3 of their destructions. Until the day they walked helpless beneath a building that carried only one name on its steel facade. Mine. They say glass doesn't scream when it breaks, but the atrium sounded like it was trying. Hundreds of guests, champagne flutes, the towering skylight of the Aldridge Design Summit catching the city lights like captive stars. My model, our model, I still thought back then, stood on a raised platform in the center, a chrome and glass high-rise, a vertical river of light. My design. My life for the last 3 years. Elias, Marissa whispered, fingers tightening on my arm. You're doing that thing with your jaw again. Stop. Cameras. I unclenched. Just breathing. Her lipstick was a precise, surgical red. She smiled at me, but it never reached her eyes. Try breathing but looking a little less needy. This is your big night. Don't make it look like a miracle. I let that go. I'd been letting things go for a while. Across the room, Darren Kessler laughed too loudly at something a journalist said, one hand in his pocket, the other resting casually on the display table of my model. Sleek suit, perfect hair, that easy charisma he wore like cologne. He caught my eye and lifted his glass. Ready, maestro? He called. Got your acceptance speech polished? Or should I improvise for us? I smiled back, thin. I'm sure you'd love that. Silas Boone, our primary investor, stood off to the side like a coiled shadow, talking quietly with 2 board members from the Architectural Standards Council. His silver hair was razor neat. The man radiated money and control. I watched him grip one of their shoulders, lean in, say something that made both men look sharply in my direction. A cold pinprick moved under my ribs. Marissa noticed my gaze. He's smoothing the way, she said. This is politics. That's why you need him. I thought the work was why I needed him. She laughed softly. No, darling. The work is why you think you're here. Silas is why anyone else thinks it. The lights dimmed. The murmur of the crowd pulled inward toward the stage where the host, a polished man with a plastic smile, walked up to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice boomed, thank you for joining us tonight as we honor the brightest minds shaping our skylines. The usual preamble. My heart beat in my throat. I felt the heat of the spotlights already, phantom burn on my skin. Darren clapped me on the back, too hard. You're about to be golden, Ward. Don't forget who rode this elevator with you on the way up, yeah? I designed the elevator, I said. He grinned, but his eyes were flat. Details. They began the finalists' reel. Projects flashed across the massive screens above the stage, conceptual bridges, eco towers, urban renewals. Then my building appeared, turning slowly in high definition, the renderings almost breathing. The crowd made that subtle, hungry sound I lived for, a collective inhale. The Horizon Spire, the host announced. Designed by Elias Ward of Ward and Kessler Studio. Applause. Flashes. My name echoed. Marissa leaned in and whispered, try not to cry. I won't. And if you thank me, she added, don't make it sound like you owe me your life. That's desperate. I swallowed. Noted. The host continued. A daring statement in structural minimalism, sustainable design, and urban integration. The council's unanimous top choice for. He stopped. Everyone heard it, the tiny glitch in his voice, the script slipping. He frowned at the teleprompter, then at someone in the wings. The big screens behind him flickered. My building vanished, replaced by a stark white background. A single word appeared in black, bold letters. Plagiarism. The polite murmur in the room broke like a wave. What the hell? I whispered. More text filled the screens. Images, diagrams. A design, eerily similar to my Horizon Spire, labeled with a date stamp from 5 years earlier and a foreign architect's name. My name appeared beside it in red, Elias Ward, unauthorized derivative work. No, I said, the word tasting metallic. No, that's not. Stay calm, Marissa hissed, her fingers digging into my wrist now. Don't make a scene. On stage, the host looked almost as pale as the projection. Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have received new information relating to one of the nominated projects. The crowd shifted, the sound of bodies moving suddenly ugly. Darren moved closer to me, face arranged in theatrical shock. Elias. What is this? You tell me, I snapped. You manage the archive. You handle external submissions. How? He raised both hands. Don't look at me. I didn't steal anything. Silas approached, his cologne preceding him. This is bad, he said softly, like we were discussing a disappointing stock report. Very bad. I stared up at the screens. The diagrams were a Frankenstein of my early sketches, old drafts we'd thrown out, reorganized to match some older foreign project I'd never seen. Those dates are fake, I said. Those versions didn't even exist. Mr. Ward, a gray-suited man approached, one of the council board members Silas had been chatting with. I'm afraid we need to speak with you privately. I'll go with him, Darren offered smoothly. As co-founder, I should. The board member's eyes hardened. This concerns accusations against Mr. Ward personally. Not the studio. That hit like a slap. Accusations? My voice climbed. Based on what? Some anonymous slideshow? The screen shifted again. This time, a series of emails appeared, blown up for everyone to read. My name in the header. My address. Lines of text highlighted. We'll borrow the core concept and tweak the footprint. They'll never know. The council doesn't care who thought of it first. They care who brings it here. My chest went hollow. I never wrote that, I said. That's not. Those are edited. They're forged. Elias, Marissa said quietly, but not to me. To the people around us. Maybe we should let the council handle this. He's been under a lot of pressure. Several faces turned toward her with instant sympathy. She gave them that wounded, brave little smile she'd perfected. A journalist pushed closer. Mrs. Ward, did you know your husband might have based his work on someone else's? She hesitated, just long enough. I had concerns, she said. But I didn't think he'd take it this far. Marissa, I breathed. Don't you dare. She finally looked at me. There was no softness in her gaze, only tired contempt. You were spiraling, Elias. Cut corners. Ignored advice. I begged you to slow down. You wouldn't listen. That's not true. Mr. Ward, the board member repeated. Now. The host tried to regain control. Until these claims can be investigated, the council has decided to suspend consideration of the Horizon Spire. The room roared. I caught snatches of it. Fraud. Knew it was too good to be his. Typical. My award, my summit, my night, was being disassembled in real time. Darren cleared his throat, stepping slightly away from me, toward the nearest camera. For the record, he said, voice loud and clear, I want it known that I had no prior knowledge of any alleged copying. If Elias did this, he did it alone. You lying son of. Security stepped between us. Silas adjusted his cufflinks like the whole thing bored him. I warned you about rushing, he murmured. About overreaching. Now my capital is tied to a tainted property. Help me fix this, I snarled. You have connections. Tell them. Tell them what? He asked, eyes flat. That I invested millions into a man who can't keep his process clean? I have a reputation, Elias. I can't let yours drag mine into the gutter. The journalist turned to him. Mr. Boone, will you be continuing your relationship with Ward and Kessler Studio? Silas didn't even blink. No, he said. Effective immediately, my firm is withdrawing from any projects associated with Mr. Ward. We will conduct an internal review to ensure my partner, Mr. Kessler, is protected. Partner? Protected. The floor swayed. Silas, I said slowly, we have contracts. Do you? He asked. You might want to have your lawyer check the clauses concerning misconduct and ethical violations. Marissa's hand slid off my arm. You should go with them, she murmured, nodding toward the board members. Make this less ugly than it already is. I grabbed her wrist. Marissa, look at me. You know I didn't steal anything. She met my eyes. For a heartbeat, there was something there, memory, maybe. The woman who once slept on rolls of tracing paper beside me on the floor of our first studio. Then it was gone. I know you failed, she said calmly. Again. And I can't keep attaching my life to your failures. The journalist's mic hovered between us, hungry. You said you'd stand by me, I croaked. In front of our families. For better or worse, remember? Her smile this time was all teeth. This isn't worse, she said. This is useless. The word hung there, louder than the gossip, sharper than the lights. Mrs. Ward, another reporter began. I won't be Mrs. Ward much longer, she cut in smoothly. I intend to file for divorce. I hope Elias gets the help he needs, but I can't carry him anymore. The cameras loved her. The board members closed in on me. Mr. Ward, please, I let them steer me away, my ears full of static. Over my shoulder, I saw Darren already surrounded by press, hands spread, playing the betrayed colleague. Silas worked the room, murmuring damage control phrases. Marissa stood between them, the tragic, valiant spouse. I watched my life reorganize itself without me in the span of a few minutes. Behind us, the host's voice cracked through the mic. For clarity, the council wishes to acknowledge that the structural and management aspects of Ward and Kessler's studio fall under Mr. Kessler and Mr. Boone. Any investigation into potential plagiarism concerns Mr. Ward alone. The crowd applauded that. They were already deciding who got to survive my execution. As the boardroom door closed behind me, shutting out the noise, I caught my reflection in the glass, suit perfect, tie straight, eyes hollow. The architect of nothing. In that moment, before the questions started flying and the accusations hardened into something permanent, I understood one thing with bone-deep clarity. They hadn't just sabotaged a project. They'd built a spectacle out of my ruin. Brick by brick. Name by name. And each one of them had left their fingerprints all over it. The morning after the summit tasted like metal and rot. I woke on my studio's leather couch, my couch, the one Marissa used to drape herself across while pretending to admire my sketches but really counting the hours she spent supporting my dream. Now it smelled faintly of her perfume and cold betrayal. My phone buzzed nonstop. Not with support. With headlines. Architectural star exposed. Ward caught in design scandal. Darren Kessler distances himself from partner. Each notification felt like a hammer tapping the same cracked bone. A pounding knock hit the office door. Before I could stand, it swung open. Darren walked in like he owned the oxygen. Rough night? He asked, tone dripping synthetic sympathy. Press always overreacts. I'm sure the truth will come out eventually. You did this, I said. My voice was sandpaper. You had access to the drafts. You handled submissions. You coordinated with Silas. This whole thing smells like you. He blinked innocently. Elias, please. If I wanted to take the firm, I'd just buy you out. This mess hurts everyone. You're enjoying every second. He looked around at the sketches pinned on the walls, the models, the cluttered brilliance I used to be proud of. The board called this morning, he said. They're holding an emergency meeting. Silas wants you to resign before they vote to dissolve your position. My position? Lead designer. He shrugged. He thinks your presence is damaging the brand. My presence? I repeated, rising. My designs built this brand. Yeah, he said softly, and now they're tearing it down. He moved toward the exit, then paused. Oh, my lawyers sent over updated ownership papers. Just a formality, but it reflects the new reality. Ward and Kessler will be transitioning to Kessler Studio effective immediately. My heart lurched. You're erasing my name? It's for your own good, really. People can't associate you with us. It's too radioactive. He left before I could speak. I stood there staring at the door. My name, carved into the metal plate outside, Ward and Kessler suddenly felt like a gravestone waiting for the chisel. I barely had time to breathe before my assistant, Serena Kwan, crept inside. Her eyes were red. I'm sorry, she whispered. They're telling us to clear out your files. Darren says legal needs everything backed up for the investigation. The word hung like smoke. I forced a nod. Do what they tell you. She stepped closer. I don't believe you stole anything. but even she looked like she was trying to convince herself. At noon, I got the call. Silas's assistant, voice icy. Mr. Ward, your contract has been terminated. Per Clause 14b, all intellectual property created under Ward and Kessler Studio remains the property of the firm. You are barred from accessing company systems. Effective immediately. Barred. From my own work. I walked out of the building carrying a cardboard box, a cliché that felt like someone else's life. Cameras were waiting. Microphones thrust into my face. Mr. Ward. Did you plagiarize the Horizon Spire? Is it true your wife is filing for divorce? Do you have any comment about the council's upcoming review? Marissa had filed already. The news broke before I reached the sidewalk. Hale seeks divorce from disgraced architect. A reporter shoved a tablet screen toward me. There she was, my wife, giving an interview outside a spa. Hair perfect, sorrow impeccably arranged. I did everything I could, she said. But Elias has been unstable for a long time. I hope he finds peace, but I can't stay attached to someone who lies. Lies. I dropped the box. Pencils and sketches scattered across the pavement like bones. A voice boomed behind me. Move along, Ward. This isn't a spectacle. Police. Someone had called them. I walked. I don't remember how far. The city blurred around me, horns, cell phones, high-rise shadows swallowing sunlight. My feet eventually led me to the one place I'd never expected to return, the tiny apartment I'd kept before the studio took off. I still paid rent on it, just in case. Just in case of what, I didn't know, until now. Inside, everything was dust and stale air and memories I'd outgrown. I sat on the bare mattress and stared at the wall until daylight collapsed. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Voicemail. Silas's voice. Elias, I hope you understand this is business. You were slipping. The board agrees. Darren's taking leadership, and Marissa will be assisting in the restructuring. We're removing your portfolio from all future bids. It's for the best. For the best, I laughed. It sounded like something breaking. Another call. A lawyer. The council. A hearing. A suspension of my license pending review. My throat closed. I stood in the darkness of the apartment, the old pipes groaning, the city humming, and felt the truth settle cold in my gut. They hadn't just humiliated me. They'd erased me. Piece by piece, they dismantled the life I built with bleeding hands and sleepless nights and relentless vision. And they'd done it publicly, smiling while they swung the hammer. I lay down on the mattress, fully clothed. For the first time in years, I felt nothing. Not even anger. Just ash. But somewhere beneath that ash, a spark waited, quiet, patient, hungry. They thought they'd destroyed me. Good. What's left of a man after everything is burned away is the part that doesn't care about being polite. Exile doesn't start with a decision. It starts with a door closing behind you and the echo lasting longer than your heartbeat. I left the old apartment 2 days after the collapse, carrying nothing but a backpack and the last sketchbook I hadn't surrendered to Darren's legal vultures. My bank accounts were frozen pending investigative review. My name had been scrubbed from the firm's site. My license remained suspended. And with the divorce filing, Marissa had already moved to block me from accessing the shared condo. She changed the locks the same morning she released a statement about taking time for her emotional healing. Healing. As if she'd been the one gutted. I dragged myself through neighborhoods I used to design for but never lived in, industrial belts where metal shrieked and the streets smelled of rust instead of ambition. Somewhere the city glittered with awards dinners and rooftop bars, but here the only light came from welding torches and flickering neon. I found a room above an auto shop. Room was generous. It was an old storage loft with a stained mattress and a single bare bulb dangling from a wire like a tired noose. The owner, a thick-armed man named Jorge Medina, barely looked at me when I handed him crumpled bills. "You break it, you fix it," he said. "I'm not planning to break anything." He grunted. "Then you're already different from most people who come through here." The nights were loud. Machines roared until dawn. Rats scurried behind the walls. But the noise kept me from thinking too clearly, which was a mercy. I spent my mornings wandering the industrial district like a ghost. No one here recognized me. No one cared if I was brilliant or disgraced. The anonymity felt like cold water on a burn. One afternoon, while staring at the exposed steel ribs of an abandoned factory, I heard a voice behind me. "You're looking at it wrong." I turned to find an older woman in a grease-stained jumpsuit, gray hair and a tight braid, glasses perched on her forehead. She had the expression of someone who'd seen too many beams crack and too many men crumble. I wasn't aware there was a right way to look at a ruin, I said. There is if you're trying to understand why it fell. She stepped beside me. Ruth called her. Structural engineer. Or I was, before the city decided they didn't need old bones anymore. Her name hit a memory, a footnote in engineering journals, whispered respect among architects. A legend hiding in a scrapyard. You're Elias Ward, she said before I could speak. You were on every screen last week. I flinched. Yeah. That was me. You plagiarized that tower? No. Good. I hate thieves. Her bluntness was a strange relief. Ruth studied me for a long moment. You look like a man who used to matter. That can be a dangerous thing. I don't matter anymore. Not yet, she corrected. But you can. Question is whether you want to. I don't want revenge, I lied. She smirked. Everyone wants revenge. The smart ones use it to build something. That sentence lodged itself in me like a nail. Over the next week, Ruth found me again, always pretending it was coincidence, always offering some sharp remark about load distribution or failed ambition. Eventually she brought me into her workshop, a cavern of machinery, metal scraps, blueprints, and half-built prototypes. You ever work with your hands? She asked. I design with them. That's not the same. She taught me weld line integrity, steel behavior under stress, how structures failed in the real world when egos designed them and accountants approved them. She made me rebuild small frames, tear them apart, rebuild them stronger. It was brutal, repetitive, humbling. And it steadied me. One night, while adjusting a joint weld, I muttered, Darren couldn't calculate lateral torque without a calculator. Ruth didn't look up. Then why does he have your studio? Because he and Silas orchestrated the perfect ambush. And your wife? I paused. She didn't stab me in the back. She stabbed me in the front. Good, Ruth said. Front wounds are easier to stitch. I let out a laugh I didn't recognize. It felt almost human. Elias, she said, handing me a fresh set of metal rods, your problem isn't that they broke you. It's that you're acting like the break is the end of the story. Breaks are load tests. Failures teach you where the weak points are. And what do I do with that? You design the next version of yourself with reinforced steel. Her words sparked something I hadn't felt since before the summit, purpose, cold and sharp. Every night after that, I sketched. Not buildings. Not yet. I sketched possibilities. Strategies. Pathways to reclaiming what was taken. I didn't know the plan, but I felt its shape forming, quiet and patient. One evening, Ruth rested a hand on my shoulder. You're starting to look alive again. Alive isn't the word, I said. Focused. She nodded. Good. Focused men build things that change cities, or destroy them. In the dim light of her workshop, surrounded by steel bones and humming machinery, I finally understood. I wasn't done. They had buried me. But I wasn't a corpse. I was groundwork. And someday soon, Darren, Silas, and Marissa would learn what grows from the foundation of a man they tried to erase. Rebirth doesn't happen in a blaze of glory. It happens in the quiet grind, steel dust, burned fingertips, midnight air that tastes like rust and resentment. Ruth pushed me harder each day. Your hands are too soft, she'd bark, shoving a fresh length of steel at me. Your mind's sharp, but sharp bends snap if the core is weak. So I strengthened the core. Hours welding. Hours calculating. Hours breathing in the metallic scent of failure turning into form. My old life, award ceremonies, rooftop galas, curated press photos, felt like a distant hallucination. In the workshop, no one cared who I had been. Only what I could make. And slowly, piece by piece, the noise inside my skull quieted. One night, Ruth tossed a folder onto the workbench. It slid to a stop beside my blueprints. What's this? I asked. A job, she said. A real one. I raised an eyebrow. I'm suspended. I can't. You won't be signing anything, she cut in. But they need reinforcement plans for an expansion. Small firm. Underfunded. They'll take brilliance over legality. I opened the folder. The design was sloppy. Unsafe. Beautiful in intention and dying in execution. I can fix this, I murmured. Ruth smirked. I know. We worked through the night. Ruth checked every calculation, arguing with me over tension loads like it was a sport. I didn't realize how much I'd missed collaboration until I had it again, This time with someone who demanded excellence, not ownership. By dawn, the redesign was elegant and resilient. A better structure than anything Darren could manage on his best day. Ruth sent it under a pseudonym. 2 days later, cash arrived in an envelope. No applause. No spotlight. Just money earned by skill, not reputation. It felt cleaner than anything I'd touched in years. That same night, I sat alone in the workshop and flipped through my old sketchbook. The early pages were full of sharp ambition, confident lines, bold ideas. Later pages turned shaky, unfocused. Then blank. I opened to a new page. Slowly, deliberately, I began to draw. Not a building. A future. A firm built without corruption. A design philosophy sharper, colder, more precise than the version of me they destroyed. A structure that could stand even when the world tried to knock it down. Something that would make the industry whisper my name again, not because they forgave me, but because they couldn't avoid me. By the time I finished, the sun was breaking over the industrial skyline. A blaze of orange light hit the steel framing in the workshop, making everything look forged. Ruth walked in, sipping burnt coffee. "You look like a man who made a decision." "I did," I said. "Well? What is it?" "I'm going back." "To what?" "To architecture. To my name. To everything they stole." Ruth studied me for a long, taut moment. "Then you're going to need help." "From you?" "Partially." She set her coffee down and nodded toward the workshop door. "But I've got someone else you need to meet." We stepped outside into the morning glare. A sleek black sedan was parked in the alley, out of place among the rusted trucks. A tall man stepped out, sharp suit, silver cufflinks, eyes that calculated everything. "Elias Ward," he greeted. "I've been waiting." I frowned. "Do I know you?" "No. But your mentor speaks highly of you." He glanced at Ruth. "And she doesn't speak highly of anyone." "Name?" I asked. "Jericho Vale," he said. "I fund talent most people overlook. And you, Mr. Ward, are currently the most underestimated man in the city." He offered his hand. I didn't take it. "What do you want?" I asked. "To give you resources. Discretion. Infrastructure. A chance to rebuild privately. Publicly you're toxic. Privately, you could be unstoppable." Ruth rolled her eyes. "He talks like a villain, but he writes checks that clear." Jericho smiled. "Join me, and you'll have the tools you need to rise again, quietly. Strategically. With no one realizing you're back until it's far too late." I hesitated. Ruth crossed her arms. "You said you're going back. This is the road." She was right. If I wanted my life back, not the old one, but a stronger, colder version, I needed allies. Hidden ones. I shook Jericho's hand. His grip was firm, confident. "Good," he said. "Then we begin immediately." The next month was a controlled blaze. Jericho provided a private workspace, an underground studio with high-end drafting tables, reinforced servers, and access to materials I'd only dreamed of. I worked with ruthless precision, designing quietly for small clients who didn't care about public scandal. Ruth oversaw my structures like a hawk. Jericho kept my identity sealed behind layers of shell firms. Piece by piece, I sharpened myself. I redesigned my style, sleeker, more brutalist, unapologetically bold. Structures with bones like weapons. Designs that spoke a language Darren could never mimic, Silas could never buy, and Marissa would never understand. I rebuilt my skill. I rebuilt my focus. I rebuilt my hunger. One night, while reviewing the stress tests of a new cantilever pattern, Ruth leaned over my shoulder. "You're ready," she said. "For what?" "For the part you haven't said out loud yet. The part burning holes in your ribs." She tapped the blueprint. "You're not drawing buildings anymore. You're drawing vengeance." I closed the laptop slowly. "I'm going to take everything from them," I said. "Not with rage. With calculation." Ruth nodded with grim approval. Jericho stepped into the room, his reflection sharp in the glass wall. "Then the next phase begins." "And what's that?" I asked. "Pressure," he said. "You apply it where their structures are weakest. And you watch them crumble." Cold clarity settled inside me like steel setting in concrete. I wasn't just coming back. I was about to start pulling the first thread. Revenge doesn't begin with a roar. It begins with a whisper, a shift in pressure so small no one notices until the beams start to bow. Darren's downfall would start with engineering. Because Darren Kessler, golden smile and empty skull, had never understood the skeleton of a building. He understood charm, politics, optics. Not torque. Not load paths. Not the way a structure's breath could become a scream if one calculation was wrong. Jericho handed me a tablet one evening, the screen filled with documents pulled from public contracts and private leaks. Kessler Studios' flagship project, he said. The Meridian Atrium. Massive mixed-use tower. Rushed. Underfunded. Overhyped. I skimmed the specs and felt my lip curl. These support intervals are suicide. Exactly. And with the press eating out of his hand, Darren's too busy posturing to notice. Ruth leaned over the table, her glasses sliding down her nose. These cross-bracing angles? They'll fail under lateral wind load. Early. Publicly. So we give them a push, Jericho said. No, I corrected, a cold spark humming through me. We let Darren push himself. We just remove the padding he doesn't know he needs. The first step was subtle. Using one of Jericho's shell firms, Harborline Structural Review, I submitted a set of routine compliance questions to the city's building inspection department. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to force a re-evaluation of Meridian's load calculations. Darren received the letter 3 days later. I watched from across the street as he stormed out of his glass-walled office, waving the notice like a child throwing a tantrum. Serena. He shouted, my old assistant, now trapped in his orbit. Why didn't anyone catch this? Why is the city asking for these numbers again? Serena stammered something, but he wasn't listening. He shoved the papers at a cluster of junior architects. Fix it. The presentation is in 5 days. Perfect. Ruth cracked a grin when I showed her the footage later. He thinks redrawing lines will magically fix physics. He's going to patch the symptoms, I said, not the underlying structural rot. Which means, Jericho finished, he'll present a flawed design in front of everyone. Good, I said. But we're not done. The second step was surgical. Darren had scheduled a materials procurement meeting for Meridian, chasing discounts he didn't understand. He planned to source cheaper steel from a supplier known for inconsistent treatments. I sent an anonymous report to the supplier claiming Darren wanted to renegotiate pricing due to doubts about their metallurgical integrity. Insulting a supplier's product is like spitting in their face. They responded by cutting ties entirely, and posting a statement online. The news spread within hours. Meridian Atrium loses steel supplier, project delayed. Darren's face on the news looked pale and furious as he insisted the project was fully under control. It wasn't. Behind the scenes, he scrambled for alternatives, but procurement delays meant the entire timeline shifted. Investors started asking questions. Silas Boone issued a lukewarm statement. We remain confident in Kessler Studios' ability to deliver. His eyes said the opposite. Ruth exhaled in satisfaction. That's pressure. He feels it. He's supposed to, I said. But we're still warming up. For the third step, I struck where Darren was blindest, public opinion. Darren had scheduled a design preview event, press, investors, influencers. The perfect opportunity to show off Meridian's grand atrium and glass staircase system. Too bad the staircase system was flawed. Ruth and I identified the issue, micro-torsion stress, where Darren had insisted on using a thinner load plate for aesthetic purity. Under repeated foot traffic, those plates would twist, imperceptibly at first, then dangerously. I didn't need to break anything. I just had to let the truth surface. So I sent an anonymous engineering memo to a journalist known for sensational safety pieces. Not evidence, just a tip about potential torsion risks in the Meridian Atrium's primary circulation feature. He published it instantly. The morning of the preview event, the headline blew up. Is Meridian safe? Expert sources suggest staircase could fail under crowd load. I sat across from the building, unseen, as Darren tried to calm a swarm of reporters. It's completely safe, he insisted. We have full inspections. Absolutely no structural risk. Could you provide the load tolerance numbers? Of course. He bluffed. We will release them shortly. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The crowd murmured. Cameras zoomed. Sweat gathered at Darren's hairline. Silas stood a few feet behind him, watching with the cold detachment of a man already preparing to abandon ship. Your move, Jericho murmured beside me. I checked my phone. A single message from Ruth, now. I triggered the final piece. A brief, anonymous upload to the city's public structural archive, my corrected torque calculations for Meridian staircase, showing the real tolerances. The numbers were damning. Reporters' phones buzzed in unison. Then the shouting started. Mr. Kessler. Why do the load tolerances fall below city minimums? Did Ward design this portion? Is your firm cutting safety corners? My God, Darren muttered, white as paper. This isn't happening. But it was. And every person in that crowd saw the truth. Darren Kessler didn't understand the very building he'd stolen credit for. Jericho folded his arms. He's cooked. No, I said. Not yet. This is just the first crack. The real collapse happens when the world realizes he can't fix the structure he pretended to design. And when does that happen? Ruth asked over the phone. When I stand in front of him, I said, and knock out the support he thinks he still has. The line went quiet with approval. Darren had taken everything from me. Now I would take the one thing he valued most. His reputation. 1 inch at a time, they invited me into the lion's den without knowing the lion was already inside the cage. The Metropolitan Design Symposium was Darren's attempt at image control. A panel on innovations in structural transparency, with Meridian Atrium as the golden case study. Investors, press, city officials. A perfect stage. Jericho slid the badge across the car's console. Guest lecturer, he said. Under your own name. I stared at the printed letters. Elias Ward. I'm still suspended, I said. Suspended, he replied, is not erased. Let Darren learn that. Ruth's voice crackled over the speaker. Remember, show your math. Men like Darren can argue feelings, not numbers. I stepped out of the car, the air electric on my skin. Walking into the glass-fronted auditorium felt like walking back into a life I'd been banished from. Heads turned. Conversation stuttered. Is that? I thought he was. Can he even be here? Good. Let them choke on the sight. Darren was already on stage, smoothing his tie, beaming for the cameras. Silas sat in the front row, Marissa beside him in a sleek black dress, her hand resting lightly on his arm. My stomach twisted, and then went calm. They had formed a little empire out of my corpse. Time to start the demolition. The moderator, a woman named Dr. Lila Myers, tapped the mic. Today, we're honored to hear from Kessler's studio about their landmark project, the Meridian Atrium. Please welcome lead architect, Darren Kessler. Applause. Darren basked in it, teeth bright. Thank you, he said, voice warm. Meridian is more than a building, it's a testament to courage, risk, and vision. I almost laughed. The only risk was letting him near a load-bearing wall. He launched into his presentation, renderings, glossy walkthroughs, promises of sustainability and elegance. The crowd murmured approval. Then the graphs appeared. Torque tolerances. Load paths. The staircase. My staircase, bastardized. Here, Darren said, laser pointer circling a diagram he didn't understand, we've optimized the cross-bracing for maximum transparency without sacrificing safety. It's cutting-edge stuff, really. Our team developed proprietary methods. Could you explain the lateral torsion restraint, someone called from the audience, compared with the city's minimum safety thresholds? Heads turned. The voice was calm, male, pointed. Mine. Darren's hand froze. His eyes scanned the crowd until he found me, sitting dead center, badge visible. Color drained from his face. Of course, he said. We, used a multivariable model. Which one? I asked. No mic. Didn't need one. Silence carried my voice. Drive, Myers frowned. Sir, questions are after the. No, I said, standing. If he's confident in his work, he can answer one now. The room shifted. The moderator hesitated, then gestured. Mr. Kessler? Darren swallowed. We used standard industry models. Name it, I said. Or give us the torsion coefficient you used for the primary stair plates. Just that number. He stared at his own slide like it might save him. I don't see how that's. You don't know it, I said. Because you didn't calculate it. Because you can't. A ripple went through the crowd, uneasy, hungry. Marissa's eyes narrowed. Silas sat very still. Dr. Myers cleared her throat. Mr. Ward. You all know who I am, I said, turning slowly to face the audience. You've read the headlines. The disgraced architect. The fraud. The warning story parents tell their ambitious children. No one spoke. So understand, I continued, That when I tell you this man doesn't understand the structure he's selling you, I'm not saying it lightly. Darren's mask cracked. You have no right. You stole my studio, I said. Stole my projects. Stole my reputation with forged emails and manufactured evidence. The least you can do is pretend to know how to hold up your own building. Gasps. Cameras pivoted. Every journalist in the room woke up at once. Dr. Myers tried to intervene. These are serious accusations, Mr. Ward. Yes, I said, eyes locked on Darren. They are. Which is why I brought proof. I handed a flash drive to a tech at the edge of the stage. Jericho had already arranged it. Within seconds, the main screen flickered, Darren's slides replaced by my structural model of Meridian's staircase. Clean. Precise. Ruth verified. These, I said, are the actual torque thresholds of Meridian's primary circulation system as currently designed, using the dimensions submitted to the city. As you can see, I pointed to the red bands lighting up on the diagram under heavy, dynamic load. These plates twist beyond safe limits. Dr. Myers leaned toward the mic. Is this confirmed data? Pull the filed plans, I said. Compare them. Or ask your safety inspector in the back. He's already seen this. Inspector Gavin Rowe, who'd been lurking near the exit, jolted upright. Every head swiveled. Is that true? The moderator demanded. Rowe adjusted his glasses, caught, and finally nodded. We had concerns about the staircase. The department requested revisions. You didn't mention that, one of the investors snapped at Darren. Darren looked like a man watching his own execution. It's all being handled. Just technicalities. Elias is exaggerating to sabotage us. He has a vendetta. Maybe, I said. Maybe I do. But numbers don't. I zoomed in on the cross-bracing details. Here's what happens if you get the crowd you're promising for your grand opening. High traffic, excited movement, uneven steps. Over time, the plates micro-warp. Eventually the rail anchors start to fail. Best case, you get cracks and emergency repairs. Worst case. I let the model simulate collapse. The visual was ugly. No fatalities, no gore, just the brutal snap of integrity failing, the symbolic death of trust. Someone in the front row whispered, "Oh, my God." "Enough," Darren snarled, stepping forward. "You're trying to destroy me because you couldn't handle your own fall." I met his stare. "No. I'm exposing you because the city deserves to know the man who framed me doesn't understand the fundamentals of the tower he's building." A jagged silence fell. Then a voice I knew too well cut through it. "Is that true, Darren?" Silas. He stood slowly, hands on the back of the chair in front of him, knuckles pale. "Did you conceal these issues from me?" I was working on solutions," Darren stammered. "Silas, come on. You know how Elias is. He's twisting this." "My firm," Silas said, "has just received a notice of premium increase from our insurers because of heightened structural concern on Meridian. I assumed it was baseless alarmism." His eyes were carving Darren open. "Now I see it was optimism." "Silas, we can fix it, just give me." "You had every resource," I cut in. "You chose shortcuts. You chose optics. You chose my life as your stepping stone." Dr. Myers looked between us, then addressed the room. "Given this information, I believe the ethical course is to suspend Meridian's showcase until an independent audit can be completed." Murmurs of agreement. Investors whispering. Phones lighting up. Darren's world was tilting. He looked at the audience, then at the cameras, then at me, really looked at me. And in that moment, all the Polish fell away. He stepped off the stage, walked straight to me, and grabbed my arm. "Elias," he hissed, low enough that only I could hear. "Help me. Please." I didn't move. "I'll cut you back in," he rushed on. "We'll say you consulted on the redesign, restore your image, get the board to reconsider. We'll bury the summit mess together. Just don't do this. Don't finish me in front of them." His fingers were shaking. "You're begging," I said. His jaw clenched. "I'm negotiating." "No," I said, prying his hand off my sleeve, finger by finger. "You're standing in the rubble of the pedestal you stole and asking me to help you glue it back together." His eyes shone with fury and something like panic. "We were partners. Partners don't build pyres out of each other's names." For a second, I saw him realize the full scope of it, the lost investors, the frozen contracts, the headlines already writing themselves. Kessler's structural negligence exposed by disgraced former partner. "You'll go down too," he spat. They'll drag your name through this again. I smiled, small and sharp. My name's already in the gutter. You just join me there. Security moved in. Not toward me. Toward him. Mr. Kessler, Inspector Rowe said, we'll need to speak with you immediately regarding compliance issues. And I strongly advise postponing any further public claims about Meridian's safety. The room watched as Darren was gently but firmly escorted away, still throwing useless words over his shoulder. Elias. This isn't over. I can fix this. Just talk to them, tell them. I turned my back on him mid-sentence. That was the first downfall. One name cracked. One thief exposed. As I stepped out into the cold afternoon light, phone buzzing with calls I ignored, I felt something settle inside me. One down. Two to go. And the next structure I planned to destabilize wasn't made of steel. It was made of money. Silas Boone's empire wasn't made of skyscrapers. It was made of leverage, quiet deals, private debts, silent partnerships, and the kind of money that didn't show up in public filings but lived in whispered conversations behind closing doors. To bring him down, I didn't need to break the walls. I needed to poison the foundation. Boone Financial Holdings is a kingdom, Jericho said as we spread documents across the steel drafting table in his underground office. But its throne isn't bolted down. It's balanced. You tip the wrong ledger, the whole thing teeters. Ruth jabbed a finger at a chart of overlapping investments. Silas doesn't build. He feeds. He attaches himself to firms, drains them, moves on. Parasitic financing. I stared at the map of his empire, nodes, companies, shell entities, real estate trusts, venture funds. Each line was a vulnerability disguised as strength. And his weakness? I asked. Jericho smirked. Vanity. He needs to be seen as infallible. Unshakable. But he's overextended. Meridian's delays put him on thin ice. If we crack it, he falls through, I finished. Step 1. Undermine confidence. Boone's wealth relied on perception. Investors believed he saw storms before they formed. So I created a storm he couldn't predict. A set of anonymous, expertly forged financial trend analyses pointing to a sudden downturn in one of Boone's heaviest assets, Arclight Urban Trust. Jericho's analysts refined the data until it looked so real investors would bet their souls on it. We leaked it to 3 boutique financial newsletters known for sniffing out early warnings. Within 48 hours, Arclight's stock dipped. Then it wavered. Then it plummeted 12% in a single day. Silas hated volatility. His empire relied on still water. I watched from a cafe across from Boone Tower as he rushed inside with 2 aides, phone glued to his ear, jaw clenched. Beautiful. Step 2. Destabilize his alliances. Silas's greatest strength was his network of silent partners, wealthy donors and board members who trusted him with their money and reputations. Many worked through backdoor agreements never meant to see daylight. So Jericho and I brought daylight. We anonymously forwarded redacted versions of their private contracts to a compliance officer at Northbridge Regulatory, a woman named Amelia Varon, who had a known hatred for undisclosed financial entanglements. She opened an inquiry so fast the ink on the email hadn't dried. Within hours, Silas's partners were calling him nonstop. Why didn't you disclose the cross-collateral agreements, Silas? You said Arclight was stable. What else have you been hiding? Silas, who loved calm, who loved control, who loved being the man in the room with all the answers, suddenly had none. Step 3. Hit where he least expected it. His personal accounts. Silas had a habit of funneling money into offshore pockets that didn't officially exist. A fund in Cyprus. A property shell in Oslo. A consulting retainer in Macau. He thought these were untraceable. Unfortunately for him, Jericho collected secrets the way artists collected brushes. We triggered a quiet tax review request from a small but vicious watchdog group. Just enough smoke to force auditors to poke around, not enough to trace back to us. 3 days later, Boone Holdings faces questions over foreign asset reporting. The headline landed like a sledgehammer. I watched footage of Silas leaving his office surrounded by lawyers, brushing off reporters with a stiff jaw and dead eyes. Marissa followed him like a shadow, her perfect smile strained at the edges. Good. Let her watch her new kingdom shake. Step 4. Strike directly. Silas hosted a quarterly investor summit in the penthouse of the Stratus Meridian Hotel, a place designed for rich men to feel invincible. He expected applause, confidence, obedience. Instead, he He got me. I walked into the penthouse in a charcoal suit that felt like armor. Heads turned as I stepped into the central hall. I wasn't invited. I didn't need to be. Silas paused mid-sentence, hand frozen on a crystal glass. Elias, he said slowly. This is a private meeting. Then it's a good thing I'm not staying long. Marissa's eyes widened. You shouldn't be here. Relax, I said. We're past the part where your opinion matters. A ripple of whispers spread across the room. I held up a tablet. I'm here because they deserve to know what you've been doing with their money. Silas's voice tightened. Careful, you should have been careful, I said. Especially with the foreign accounts you didn't disclose. And the conflict of interest deals you tried to bury under shell corporations. And the artificial inflation of ArcLight's growth projections. He stepped closer, voice low. You don't understand the world you're playing in. No, I said. I understand it too well. You built your throne on the illusion that you're untouchable. I'm here to show them the cracks. I projected every document onto the wall behind me, summaries, charts, offshore transfers, internal memos. The room erupted. You lied about risk exposure? You used our capital as collateral for private ventures? Boone, answer the question. Silas's mask fractured. These data sets are manipulated. They're your numbers, I said. And any of them can verify it. Marissa grabbed his arm. Silas, say something. He didn't. Because for the first time in his career, he couldn't. Investor Gerald Pierce, one of his oldest allies, stood. Boone, until these allegations are resolved, we cannot continue under your leadership. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence. The room agreed instantly. Silas's empire didn't fall with a bang. It fell with unanimous silence. He stared at me like he was memorizing the shape of a threat. Elias, he said quietly. You've made a very powerful enemy. I stepped closer until our breaths touched the same air. No, I whispered. I'm the enemy you made years ago when you decided my life was cheaper than your reputation. He looked smaller. Not defeated, cornered. He lowered his voice. Please. Let me fix this. Let me make you whole again. I'll clear your name. I'll restore your license. Just don't finish me. Begging. Just like Darren. It's too late, I said. Your throne wasn't poisoned. It was hollow. I just tapped it. He exhaled shakily. You don't know what comes next. I do, I said. What comes next is you losing everything you ever claimed wasn't built on the backs of men like me. I turned to leave. Behind me, the king of a paper empire sank into a real chair for the first time in his life. 2 down. 1 left. And she was the one who'd stabbed me without blinking. Marissa Hale's turn was coming. Marissa Hale always believed destruction was something that happened to other people. She wore confidence the way others wore armor, expensive, polished, blinding, but underneath it was the same brittle vanity that held Silas's empire together. I didn't need to bankrupt her. I didn't need to expose her. I just needed to pull out every pillar she leaned on. And let gravity do the rest. Marissa lived now in a penthouse Silas had temporarily provided, an ice-white monument of glass, marble, and self-worship perched above the city she believed she owned. After Silas's fall, the tower felt haunted. Jericho handed me a dossier. Your ex-wife's financial reality, he said. Spoiler, it isn't real. Ruth grunted beside him. Designer clothes bought on borrowed credit. A lifestyle paid for by a man who's currently fighting for survival. She's a house made of receipts. And what about her career? I asked. Jericho smirked. Career? He wasn't wrong. Marissa had reinvented herself as a strategic brand consultant, meaning she posted curated photos of herself giving advice no one asked for, then waited for sponsorships. She leaned on the illusion of influence. She didn't actually have influence. Not until she married me. And not since she left. Perfect. Step 1, collapse her social scaffolding. Marissa's world revolved around a circle of wealthy wives, women who pretended friendship while measuring each other's failures like bloodhounds. Their allegiance depended on status. So I targeted the thing that always terrified them most, association with scandal. Using an anonymous account, Jericho leaked just enough truth to start the rumor mill. Boone Holdings in turmoil, insiders questioned Marissa Hale's role in financial red flags. The wives didn't call her to ask if she was okay. They called each other. Then they froze her out. Invitations vanished. Group chats went silent. Charity committees quietly shifted direction. She posted a smiling brunch photo the next day, trying to pretend everything was normal. The comments told the truth. Are you involved in the Boone mess? Did you know about the offshore funds? Interesting timing on your divorce. Perfect hair, perfect lipstick, perfect lies, none of it mattered now. Her fear was visible in the way she pressed her lips too tightly. Step 2. Cut her financial lifeline. Silas, now drowning in his own crisis, could no longer afford ornamentation. His lawyers began severing assets ruthlessly, starting with anything not legally required. Marissa. The moment he signed the document terminating her living allowance, I received the notification Jericho had set up. A neat line item. Hail, Marissa, support, discontinued. 2 days later, she attempted her usual shopping spree at Davenport Couture. The cashier's polite tone carried through the security feed. I'm sorry, Ms. Hale. This card has been declined. Marissa's smile cracked like chilled porcelain. There must be some mistake. I ran it twice. Run it again. I can't. She left the store without her bag of luxury armor. I watched the footage 3 times. Not out of pleasure, though I won't pretend I didn't feel it, but because I needed to see the precise moment the truth reached her eyes. She had never built anything. She had only stood on the rubble of others. That was when she began calling me. 9 missed calls in 1 hour. I didn't answer. Step 3. Take the mirror she loved most, her public image. Marissa's influence depended on being adored, admired, envied. So I sent her followers what they truly craved, authenticity with teeth. An anonymous whistleblower account posted screenshots of her private messages, edited for accuracy but not truth, showing the way she'd spoken about me during my collapse. Elias is dead weight. I'll leave before he drags me deeper. I deserve better men, better money, better everything. The internet reacted exactly as expected. Cruel. Narcissist. Classic social climber. How could you treat someone like that? Marissa issued a statement about being misunderstood, claiming the messages were out of context. No one believed her. She had spent years crafting an image of the perfect supportive spouse. Now the mask ripped clean off. Good. Masks should never survive fire. Step 4. Confrontation. She showed up at my rented workspace, Jericho's basement studio, without warning, pounding on the steel door until Ruth opened it. Ruth leaned in the doorway like a guard dog. You lost? Marissa's voice trembled, not with fear, but with disbelief.
I need to speak with Elias.
Ruth didn't move. Why? Because everything is falling apart, Marissa snapped. My accounts are frozen. My reputation is being shredded. I know he's behind this. I know it. Ruth smirked. Does it feel familiar? I stepped forward then, emerging from behind a drafting table. Marissa froze. She looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I had grown. Elias, she breathed. Please. Please talk to me. Her eyes glistened, not with remorse, but desperation. You ruined me, she whispered. You've taken everything. Why? I studied her for a long, quiet moment. Because you taught me how. She stepped closer, trembling. I never meant for things to go that far. I was scared. I thought you were going to drag me down with you. I didn't know what Silas and Darren were planning. You helped them, I said. Calm. Cold. True. You cut the rope while I was still climbing. I can fix this, she said quickly. I'll speak publicly. I'll say the emails were forged. That I panicked. That I didn't know the truth. I'll clear your name. Just help me. Please. There it was. The begging. The collapse. The truth. You want me to save you, I said. You saved me once, she whispered. When you married me. When you gave me a life I didn't have to build.
I could be that woman again.
I shook my head. That woman never existed. Her face crumpled. Elias, she whispered, tears finally spilling. Don't leave me like this. I don't have anywhere else to go. I leaned close enough for her to feel my breath. You left me first. Then I stepped back. And Marissa Hale broke, not loudly, not theatrically, but with a quiet, defeated sound that echoed deeper than any scream. 3 down. But her ending? That wasn't final yet. That would come when the city saw my name, unmistakable, unerasable, towering above them all. On the building she once told me I'd never be good enough to design. A year after my exile, the city skyline changed, and no one knew I was the one bending it. Jericho's network had funneled clients quietly, private tech firms, foreign investors, a museum board wanting a discreet redesign. My name stayed off paperwork, replaced by shell companies and consultants. But the designs were unmistakable. Clean, brutalist bones. Aggressive symmetry. A cold elegance no committee could water down. I had rebuilt myself in the shadows. Now it was time to step into the light. The invitation list for the Helix Center for Urban Innovation Gala went out on a Thursday morning. Every major architect in the city received one. Every investor. Every critic. Every journalist. Every parasite who had fed off my ruin. Darren got one. Silas got one. Marissa got one. None of them knew the truth. Not yet. The Helix Center had been a rumor for months, an anonymous firm constructing a monumental headquarters in the heart of the district I used to dream of shaping. The press speculated endlessly about who designed it. Who funded it? What visionary was behind the curtain? The curtain would drop tonight. I arrived early. Not in the back. Not unseen. Through the front entrance, wearing a charcoal suit lined with steel gray fabric, every step deliberate. The plaza was already filling with high-profile guests, photographers setting up, drones hovering. The Helix Center towered above us, a sculpted monolith of blackened glass and exposed titanium beams spiraling around each other like a double helix frozen mid-twist. My building. The one I designed in Ruth's workshop while my hands were still trembling from betrayal. The one I refined in Jericho's bunker when silence was the only company I had left. The one built from the bones of every lesson they taught me. A journalist spotted me first. "Ward?" she stammered. Are you? "Yes," I said. "I'm here." The whisper spread like electricity. Head snapped toward me. Phones lifted. Voices rose. "Is he invited? Can he be here?" I thought he was finished. I walked past all of them. Inside the lobby, a massive stage faced a glass staircase. Guests filled the mezzanine. Industry voices buzzed like wasps. And lined up near the VIP section. Darren. Silas. Marissa. The unholy trinity. Darren looked older, not in years, but in fear. Silas looked carved from stone, hollow around the edges. Marissa. She looked like a shattered version of her former self, dressed elegantly but with panic stitched into the corners of her eyes. She saw me first. She stiffened. Darren followed her gaze. His jaw dropped. "You've got to be kidding." Silas's eyes narrowed, a predator recognizing the hunter it failed to kill. Before any of them could speak, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. The host stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the grand unveiling of the Helix Center for Urban Innovation, the most ambitious architectural project this city has seen in a generation." Cameras flashed. Applause rippled. "And tonight," the host continued, "we reveal the visionary behind this extraordinary structure. A designer whose work has already reshaped global discourse, though until now he has chosen anonymity." I felt the room tighten around me. Darren whispered to Silas, "You know who it is?" Silas shook his head. "Some nobody with money." Marissa stared straight ahead, breathing too fast. The host smiled wide. "Please welcome to the stage, Elias Ward." The world stopped. My name, my actual name, poured out of the speakers like a proclamation, reverberating through the marble, through the glass, through every trembling bone in the room. The applause began as confusion. Then shock. Then an eruption. I walked forward, past people who had once written me off as a cautionary tale, past architects who whispered my name like a ghost, past the woman who had vowed to never stand beside me again. On stage, under blazing light, I faced them all. "Thank you," I said, voice cutting clean through the air. "Some of you may be surprised to see me. Others may be disappointed. And a very specific few I let my gaze land on Darren, on Silas, on Marissa, maybe terrified." A nervous ripple of laughter. "I designed the Helix Center the night my old life was taken from me," I continued. "Not as a monument to revenge, but as proof. Proof that truth endures longer than rumor. That skill survives sabotage. And that a name, when earned, can never be erased." The screens lit up with design renderings, my renderings, with my signature stamped on each one. My name. Everywhere. Darren stumbled forward, face red. This is impossible. Your license, your reputation, rebuilt, I said simply. Silas pushed through the crowd. Ward, you can't hold on to this, your involvement will raise questions, legal questions. I turned to him. Everything here is legal. Every contract. Every permit. Every audit. Ask the city attorney. A woman stepped forward, Attorney Dana Rios, the one Jericho hired months earlier. She said, loud enough to carry. Mr. Ward's license was reinstated last month. All accusations against him were formally dismissed following a federal inquiry. The forged emails were traced to a device connected to multiple parties. You know which parties? Gasps. Whispers. Faces turning. Darren paled.
I didn't.
Silas looked ready to faint. Marissa began to cry silently. I stepped closer to them, not touching, just near enough that the truth weighed on their shoulders. You took my firm, I said to Darren. Now yours is bankrupt. You took my name, I said to Silas. Now mine stands higher than any building you ever financed. You took my life, I said to Marissa. And now you are standing here with nothing while the city applauds my resurrection. The silence after that was thunderous. Marissa reached out with trembling fingers. Elias. Please. Just talk to me. I looked at her hand. Then at her. No, I said. Talk is for equals. And you made sure we would never be that again. Her face broke. The host approached me, voice bright and trembling with excitement. Mr. Ward, would you do the honor of revealing the final detail? I pressed the control. The exterior lights of the Helix Center blazed to life, illuminating the front facade, an enormous vertical steel plate, polished to a mirror sheen. And carved across it in towering black lettering. Ward Architecture Group. The crowd roared. The villains crumbled. And I finally, stood where I was meant to be. Above them. Beyond them. Unreachable. But my story wasn't finished. There was still one chapter left. The one where I deliver the final blow. Victory doesn't echo. It resonates, vibrating through every nerve, every scar, every place inside you that once believed you would never rise again. The night of the Helix Center unveiling should have ended with applause and champagne. Instead, it ended with the three people who ruined me standing in the shadow of a building they could never touch, each one waiting for a mercy that would never come. I didn't leave immediately. I lingered in the private upper terrace overlooking the city, the place where I'd planned the entire resurrection. From here the skyline stretched like a conquered territory, the Helix Center's dark geometry reflecting a future they could no longer claim. Footsteps approached behind me. Soft. Hesitant. Marissa. Elias, she said, her voice small. Please. You don't have to disappear again. We can. There is no we, I said without turning. There hasn't been for a long time. She took a trembling breath. I was wrong. I know that. But I was scared. I thought if I stayed with you after the scandal, it would cost you status, I finished. Silence. You didn't just leave, I said. You publicly declared I wasn't worth saving. You let them bury me because it was easier than standing next to me. Tears streaked her cheeks. I thought you were finished. So did they, I said. That's why I didn't tell any of you what I was building. She reached for my arm. I stepped away like her touch was heat on raw skin. Look at me, Elias, she whispered. So I did. Her makeup smeared. Her confidence shattered. The woman who once stood on red carpets at my side now stood like an abandoned statue in a museum no one visited anymore. You were wrong, I said softly. Not about the scandal. Not about the fall. About me. She blinked. What? What do you mean? I wasn't finished, I said. I was forged. Her breath caught. Goodbye, Marissa. She collapsed into a broken exhale as I walked past her, tears dripping onto marble she didn't deserve to stand on. Darren was next. He cornered me near the service elevator, eyes frantic, suit disheveled. The fall from arrogance to desperation had hollowed him out. Elias, listen to me, he said, palms open, trembling. My firm is gone. Investors pulled everything after the symposium. I'm being audited.
I need your help.
Please. You know how to fix reputations. You know the right people. I do, I said. And none of them will take your call. You can put in a word, just one word. They trust you again. You could rebuild me the way you rebuilt yourself. I stared at him for a long moment, letting him taste hope. Then I crushed it. You didn't ruin my career, I said. You ruined my name. And that wasn't business, it was betrayal. You pushed me off a cliff because you couldn't stand the idea of living in my shadow. That's not. It is, I said. You wanted the spotlight so badly you set the stage on fire. And now you're choking on your own smoke. He swallowed, voice cracking. Please, Elias. I'm begging you. You should be, I said. But not to me. To every young architect whose work you stole. Every intern you treated like furniture. Every client you lied to. Every person you stepped on to reach a podium you couldn't keep. His face crumpled. Don't expect forgiveness, I said. Forgiveness requires respect. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button. The doors slid shut on Darren's slack, devastated expression. Perfect. Silas Boone waited in the parking terrace, leaning against his black sedan like a statue carved from arrogance and fear. He didn't look at me when I approached. He spoke to the city lights instead. You cost me everything, he said. No, I corrected. You cost yourself everything. I just moved the spotlight. He turned. His eyes were hollow, not broken like Darren's, not desperate like Marissa's, but cold. A man realizing, for the first time, that he wasn't the apex predator. You could have partnered with me again, he said. Rebuilt something powerful. You have influence now. You have the city's attention. We could have ruled this place. I don't want to rule, I said. I want to create. And you think you can do that without enemies? He hissed. I already did, I said. I built this entire resurgence while you were too busy admiring yourself in boardroom windows. Silas straightened, jaw set. You don't walk away from men like me, Elias. You don't beat men like me. This city is built on alliances and concessions. You think because you have one building. It's not one building, I said quietly. It's a foundation. And you don't get to stand on it. He inhaled sharply, as if preparing for a final threat. I cut him off. The three of you thought you were ending my story, I said. But you were just writing my prologue. A long silence. Then he did something I never expected. He bowed his head. Not out of respect. Out of recognition. He knew I had surpassed him. He knew I had won. I walked past him without another word. I stepped onto the rooftop garden of the Helix Center as the first hint of dawn painted the skyline. Cold wind whipped at my suit. The city stretched endlessly below, a grid of ambition, betrayal, opportunity, rebirth. Ruth stepped out from the stairwell, hands in her pockets. It's done? Yes, I said. She came to stand beside me. How do you feel? I looked at the horizon. Like the air is finally clear. She nodded. Good. Because you have a lot of work to do. This building is only the beginning. I smiled. I know. Proud of you, Elias, she said quietly. I turned to her. Thank you. For everything. She grunted, uncomfortable with sincerity. Don't get sentimental. Just keep building structures that don't collapse under pressure. I laughed. Deal. She headed back inside, leaving me alone with the sunrise. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the past slide off my shoulders and fall into the shadows below. They tried to bury me. But I wasn't soil. I was bedrock. And the city would be built on my name now. My story didn't end with revenge. Revenge was simply the blueprint. The ending was the last line I whispered into the cold morning air. A line meant for the three ruins I left standing behind me. I warned you.